Welcome, everyone, to the Leadership in Quarters podcast, the interview series where leaders come to share their perspectives on different leadership topics. I'm Josh Seldin, and today we have our first dual guest episode. Our guests today are Kurt Mosley and Neill Marshall. Kurt Mosley is a highly esteemed healthcare industry expert with over 30 years' experience, currently serving as the association's practice leader for Health Search Partners. He previously spent 31 years at AMN Healthcare and Merritt Hawkins, most recently as Vice President of Strategic Alliances, where he built critical partnerships with dozens of state hospitals and healthcare associations. A member of the Executive Speakers Bureau, Kurt has addressed over 90 professional organizations, is frequently featured in top-tier publications like USA Today and Modern Healthcare, and holds a bachelor degree from California State University, Fullerton, following an early career in baseball. Our other guest, Neill Marshall, is an executive search veteran and serial entrepreneur with over 30 years of experience and more than 600 senior level assignments to his credit. He currently serves as board of chair of Health Search Partners, a firm he co-founded in 2017, following a distinguished career at launching and leading specialized healthcare recruitment firms like Marshall Cole and Associates and Sutherland Partners. A recognized thought leader and Texas A&M alumnus, Neill frequently speaks to boards of directors on executive recruiting and healthcare trends, and currently resides in Coppell, Texas, with his wife, Mary. So welcome, Neill and Kurt.
Hey, thanks, Josh. Great to be here.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks for the kind introduction. My mom would be pleased hearing it. My dad would believe about half of it. So we'll leave it with that, okay?
It's always so impressive to see everything that you do written on a piece of paper, because a lot of times you're like, oh, I wonder what I'm leaving behind. And there's a lot of impressive stuff there. So definitely things to be proud of.
Thank you.
So today's episode, just for everybody listening in, will be the importance of listening before making any major changes or movements, which I think a lot of people can really internalize and relate to their day-to-day work in the professional world. So I'm really glad you both are here to help talk about that.
Great.
Us too. Thanks.
All right, so we will kick it off, and I would love to hear from one or both of you to understand what is the biggest risk that some leaders take when they try to fix a problem before they've really taken the time to listen to people to understand what the problem is or even understand the history behind it before they act and do something.
Sure. Well, Josh, it's a good question. This is the core of our 90 Days series. We call it 90 Days to Define Your Leadership Legacy, but it's really what you do in that first 90 days of a new role that you take on. And that's really where our article series came on, and that's how our podcast series developed. But I think the key point is listening first is every organization has scars, if you will. And if you don't understand how those scars got there, you're going to reopen old wounds. And obviously, sometimes you can't repair that. And a lot of times leaders frequently mistake symptoms for problems. They may see a symptom and think it's a problem, but if they listen more, they'll understand. And then listening really at the start prevents solving the wrong issue. So many times people jump in that first 90 days, they feel that pressure to try to accomplish something, to make a big win. And that's good. And that's what we talk about. But again, the back history really gives context to today's behavior. And one of our favorite examples in our 90-day series is a gentleman named Mike Mutter. He became a CEO after his predecessor, the CEO, passed away unexpectedly. And instead of immediately changing things around the organization, he intentionally left her office untouched for several months because a lot of people said, you're the interim CEO. And he was promoted from the CNO position up to the CEO position. But he was calm enough to say, no, I'm not going to do that, because a lot of people really, at his work, really appreciated that. And he understood that the staff was grieving. He had to make a lot of decisions, but he didn't want to trample on his predecessor. And, instead of just saying, I'm in charge now, he demonstrated respect for the organization's history and before he started shaping the future.
Wow. That's a very impressive example that you have there, and very respectable by that CEO, because a lot of times, whether it's an internal move or an external move, the person who's coming in is brought in for a reason. And that reason is, hey, we need to get the organization from here to here, or they have safety issues, or they have quality issues, whatever that is. And rather than wait that 90 days and listen and watch and see how things are going, they make changes day one. Maybe day two, maybe day one, they watch a little bit to get to know people, and then they make these changes day two. And I think, as you said, it is detrimental to the organization and the leader as they go in that approach.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me tell you something. If you're going to make a change day one, you better be right, and you better be 100% right. Because if you're not, the organization is going to remember your screw up forever.
Yep. Yeah, you're exactly right. The first moment of truth and the first impression that you have with your organization is very important. And jumping in immediately, right or wrong, tells them a lot of things, especially if you're wrong. Like you said, you're right. It still shows them that, hey, I'm not going to come here and listen and see things. I'm just going to go do this. And maybe they take away from it that maybe you know what you're talking about, but you're still not going to listen to us. And worst case is exactly what you said, Neil, where you're wrong. And now it's like, not only do you not listen to us, but you don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, what are some things that leaders can do or things that they can learn to help listen better? Because a lot of times, in my opinion, and sometimes in my experience, a lot of leaders will sit in their offices and use spreadsheets in their mind to understand what's really going on in their organization. How do they then build the skills to make that mental shift to say, rather than sit on my butt by myself in my little silo and assume I know what's actually happening, instead, I'm going to go out and talk to people and listen to really find out what's happening so then I can really work on what's important instead of what I think is important?
Data is going to tell you what happened, and that's fine, but employees are going to tell you why it happened. The culture is going to live in the conversation. It doesn't live in dashboards. The culture lives out amongst the people. And bottom line is the frontline employees know where the frictions truly exist. So we had one CEO, Matt Fry, he runs a hospital up in Joplin, Missouri, and he actually started 2 weeks before his first day. He hung out in the hospital, walked everywhere. And one of his early discoveries came just walking through the hospital. He found out patients weren't frustrated with their clinical care, they couldn't find their way around the buildings.
Wow.
So his first quality initiative wasn't clinical at all. It was improving the wayfinding and helping patients navigate the campus. So no dashboards necessary. Walking along and watching people and watching the blank look on their faces. That's what did it.
That is a very important approach. And actually, I know when I first started with the company that I work for, and we're in manufacturing, the first thing I heard stories on the floor when I went to go work shifts on the line was that there was a plant manager, so the head person in charge in the plant that we're in. And when they first came, the first couple weeks, they showed up on night shift. And of course, everybody's first thought process was it's a gotcha moment. I'm going to go see what everybody's doing on nights. But no, it was when things get bad, when there's no support, when there's no help anywhere, the frustration is there on night shift. That's when stuff's going to hit the fan. And so that's the first story everybody tells because that's exactly what happened. They want to see what's happening at their worst so then they know where the help needs to be and then they can go make that change.
You're 100% correct. And we'll actually tell a story of a CEO that doesn't just go in on the night shift. He moved into the hospital for the first 90 days. But that's coming up.
Good.
Oh, awesome.
And we've had this same thing. Some of the CEOs we've dealt with, Josh, in a hospital, especially a large hospital, his first shifts were at the night shift. He showed up at 12 a.m. and it wasn't a gotcha for him, but he was saying, I understand that the hospital's 24/7. I understand a lot of stuff happens after. My dad always used to tell me nothing ever good happens after 12 at night. And that's what happens. But he just said, I'm here for you. I'm here for your support. I want to see what's going on in the not so popular shifts, and meant a lot to his employees, really built a lot of trust and rapport. And his leadership style was developed from his first rounds being during the night.
That's the important part is really having those off shifts where people really struggle or need the help to help build that trust and support. And I think you brought up a great point, Kurt, that I'd like to play off of a little bit is as we think of trust and as we think of openness, a lot of what we talked so far is the leader being able to listen and the people being able to feel like they can tell the leader something, which then enables the leader to listen. But what kind of environment or approach does that leader need to initially take so the people talking to them doesn't tell the leader what they want to hear? They instead tell them what's really going on and have that really open and honest conversation.
Most importantly, meet people individually before speaking to large groups. I think that's very important. Ask questions, but most importantly, Josh, ask consistent questions. The same questions, the same people. The problem is a lot of people say I'm a good listener. I asked a lot of questions, but the questions were all over the place. So there was no baseline to really evaluate the answers. Listen much longer than you talk. because people are hearing you, but they're also watching you. Josh, as Patton said at one time, famous World War II general, he said, "You're on stage every day." He says, "I'm on stage when I go to the commissary. I'm on stage when I go to the meeting tent." So you're on stage all the time. And reward honesty rather than agreement. You may not agree on something, but reward them for saying, "I appreciate you coming to me. I know it was probably tough bringing this topic to me, but we appreciate it." Jay Robinson, he ran a couple hospitals up Northern California for Kaiser Permanente, and he intentionally met people in their offices in his first 90 days rather than a group. And he had 242 different individual meetings with those people. And he said to them, "If I'm successful in the first 90 days, what will be different? What will it look like?" And that question led to thoughts about what needs improvement, what barriers were out there, and what leadership could do better to support his employees. And again, he believed that employees speak more openly on familiar ground instead of sitting across from his desk in the CEO office. And the setting, what he said, was the key to getting honest, truthful answers and more candid answers.
And the biggest one, Josh, is the minute you shoot a messenger, you will never hear the truth again.
Right.
When somebody brings you the truth and you fly off the handle and you scream and you throw whatever, you will never get the truth again.
That's so true because a lot of times people think, oh, people will only come to me if I agree with what they're bringing. It's not that. It's exactly what you said, Neil. It's the tone and approach of how I receive the message. And I may not like it, or it may be something that is either unrealistic or it's not a solution for today or whatever it is, or maybe I do. Who knows? But how we both, I think what Kurt brought to, how we support and reward that person coming to me and letting them know that it's appreciated. And like you said, even if it's not going to land well, not flying off the handle, just that personal human centric communication there is night and day impactful for how they're going to react in the future.
Yeah, I agree.
The other thing that I think a lot of people don't really internalize much that I'd love to hear your opinions on is we think of listening, and I think Kurt mentioned this already about how we should listen more than we speak. And I love the phrase somebody I worked with before told me we were given two ears and one mouth. We should use them proportionally. And we think, okay, listening is you are talking to me and I'm sitting here and listening. But a lot of times, listening goes so much more beyond just words and what people are telling us. So, what are some of those other cues, those social cues, those nonverbal cues that people may have that if you're truly listening, you can pick up on those and see what's actually happening or how people feel before you introduce some kind of change or shift to the organization?
Yeah, I think watching behavior more than the presentations. Observe who speaks first. Notice who never speaks. And also pay attention to what everybody accepts as normal. So we had a hospital, a famous guy here in Dallas, ran the largest hospital. It's like Carolina's healthcare system where you are,
Hmm.
but it was Texas Health Resources, 30 hospitals, $20 billion in a huge place. But when he was coming to your hospital to walk through the hospital, it better be ship shape because if he was walking down the hall and there was a light bulb out, he didn't scream, he didn't yell, he stopped and he said, "Let's get a ladder." And he pulled the ladder out and he got up and he changed the light bulb right then and there. Didn't have to happen very often before everybody knew you needed to have things ship shape when he was coming, which means you need to have things ship shape all the time. And he didn't yell and he didn't tell you what to do. He did it, but you didn't want Doug Hawthorne changing light bulbs in your hospital.
That is absolutely the worst feeling. And it's one of those things that I think in my mind of, yeah, your parents could yell at you, but when they look at you and they're calm and they say, I'm just really disappointed in you, it hits you in the heart a little more. And that's what I feel like this is because you don't need a leader that's going to come in and yell and tear you a new one. But when a leader comes in and, in a sense, has to do your job for you, they don't have to say a word. As soon as you see that happen, you're like, oh my gosh, I need to make some kind of change, either my day to day or at least in the environment to make sure that doesn't happen again real quick.
Yeah, you don't want a leader, especially one that you admire and respect. I'll never forget my first job out of college. They had fired our CEO, so the new CEO came in, And so we were watching out the window when he pulled up into the driveway and he got out and he walked the parking lot and he picked up garbage in the parking lot.
Wow.
Never said a word about it. Came in, introduced himself and all of that. But we were all executive trainees, and the executive trainees made sure we all showed up 15 minutes before him and we walked the parking lot because our CEO was not going to be picking up garbage. But he never said a word about it.
And it also shows the organization what you're willing to accept from that level. And so
Absolutely.
if I'm the CEO, I'm the plant manager, I'm the leader of the hospital, whatever it is, if I walk by that garbage on the floor, I walk by that blinking light bulb, then it's the exact opposite message of everything you just told me about that CEO, where, yeah, he doesn't care if the light bulb's blinking. And that means that my patients are going to be in the hospital with blinking light bulbs. I don't care that there's garbage on the parking lot. So, hey, what's a little more garbage? And it's a very slippery slope once that happens.
True.
So, as we talk listening and hearing what other people think, I am a firm believer that when people are involved and you listen to them and they are at least part of a decision, then they have a lot more energy behind the direction of where we go. And so, as you're in a leadership position, you have really directives that are coming from you or possibly through you from above you, or co creation with people. And obviously, co creation is very important when it comes to listening, so you can make sure there's true co creation. How does listening early on and going more the co-creation versus directive route help organizations move forward and really encourage the organization to want to sustain the change and the shift instead of just doing it because you said so?
It's a good question, Josh. Especially in the first 90 days, you want your employees to participate, but ownership follows participation. And I think that's the key for everybody to remember. People support what they help build. They build it with you as opposed to being told what to do. They're more involved. Also, it's personal for them. So they want whatever they're trying to do to be successful, or they want improvement in whatever project they're working on. And listening first really creates those shared solutions. I think you hear of leaders that say, it's my decision to make and I'll make it that way. No, it's really important to involve your employees in those. And then co-creation change lasts much longer than mandated change. Terrence Farrell, who was a CEO that is one of our article stories, and he didn't show up day one with his whole binder of solutions. He did these daily huddles, what he called them. The article is called Huddle Up, and we really enjoyed visiting with him. But he involved physicians, nurses, frontline caregivers in redesigning these operational processes for the hospital. Because they helped build the process, they own the results. They were the first to come back and say, this didn't work because this percentage dropped, but we could change it next time to try this. But most of the time, the outcomes were extraordinary. The Foley catheter use dropped dramatically. Restraints declined by 95%. And seclusion events in hospitals, and people in healthcare will know this, reached zero. And the length of stay improved significantly. And we're in the healthcare arena, and that's what we're talking about, all these stories. But
Yeah.
one of the best business stories on this, Josh, was the Toyota production system. When everybody started modeling themselves after it, it succeeded because improvements came from the people doing the work, not just directives from the executives in the higher offices.
I think it enables the conversation in a couple ways. One is anytime I'm involved in creating something, I now have the energy behind it because I do have that buy-in that you talked about. And because I already have been involved in creating the solution and the fix for what's happening, then when it doesn't work out, you now have somebody bringing another solution to the table, as opposed to just somebody constantly bringing problems of this isn't working, this isn't working. You've already got that buy-in, and they're going to come with a solution to the table. Even if it's not the best solution, they're trying. And it prevents the outcome of this was Kurt's idea and it didn't work. This was Neill's idea and it didn't work. So it's on them. Hopefully they have a better one next time. Now you have this involvement and this buy-in from the people that it's all of our ideas. And when it doesn't work, we are all going to work together at some other solution.
And I know when I have a personal idea, whether it's work or not, and it doesn't work, I want to fix it because it was my idea. It's not necessarily egotistical on my part, but I want it to work because it was part of my idea. And my dad always used to tell me this all the time, but he said, Kurt, don't worry if it doesn't work. He said, you never lose, you just learn.
Yeah, that's the important part, is making sure that when something doesn't work, whether you want to call it a failure, a challenge, whatever it is, it's a learning opportunity and not a failure. It's not something that just didn't work. It's
Yeah.
a way to know what to do differently next time. So, how does a leader committing to listening before they begin, listening in the beginning of those 90 days, really build leverage that you need to guide teams through tough transitions? Because when things get tough and there is chaos and there are barriers, a lot of times it's very easy to throw aside our initial plan and our commitment to whatever is simpler or whatever we may think people want to go hear or do. So, how do we really commit to that listening and build that direction for our teams?
By listening, you earn trust. The trust becomes credibility. Credibility becomes what we call earned authority. And earned authority allows difficult change to happen faster. There are two ways you get authority. One is you get hired, and the people that report to you, they're supposed to do what you say. But the other is when you earn the authority, and that means that they want to follow you. And when they want to follow you, great things can happen. When we talked earlier, a gentleman by the name of Richard Parks, he ran a 22 hospital system out in West Texas, $10 billion. It was significant. And Kurt and I were interviewing him, and he said, when I took this job, my wife stays home to sell the house and move the family, and I move into the hospital. And we're like, okay, Richard, everybody works hard their first 90 days. He said, no, I move into the hospital. I live there. And listen, Josh, I've interviewed 10,000 hospital executives in my career,
Wow.
and I had never heard anything like that. It blew my mind. I said, what did you get from it? He said, the credibility that I got by being there. He said, the day that I left, I was there 7 years. He said, the day that I left, there were still people that talked about I was the guy that lived in the hospital.
My gosh, that's commitment.
Yeah. And frankly, his story. So after we heard it, I get with Kurt and I'm like, this is interesting, dude. We need to write an article about this.
Yeah.
Don't you think? And Kurt's, yeah. So we wrote an article, went to Richard, said, look, we wrote this article based on what you told us. Is it okay? And he said, yeah, fine, publish it. And that article started our whole dive into the 90-day focus. We've done now 40 articles on this. We've interviewed over 100 people. We're continuing to write articles, and it evolved into this earned authority mantra, and it's what started everything.
And I think Josh, Neill, and I were like rock hounds, flipping through some quartz or some garnets or whatever. I'm not a rock hound, but all of a sudden we found gold. We were like, wow. It just came to us and we took it and ran with it. And it's been very successful. And we just really enjoy talking to CEOs about this. And if anybody that's listening on your podcast has a story they'd like to share with us, we'd love to interview them. Something symbolic they did in the first 90 days, something they did to establish credibility, something they did to earn that trust in the first 90 days. We would love to hear from them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that approach, and I encourage anybody who does have that to please get in touch with you all, and I'll make sure I talk through that way of getting in touch. But it is a great thought process of earning the authority, because so many times people think you earn the authority through getting to the position, you earn the authority through the interview, through accepting the job offer, and it's not. That's step one. You get into your role, but really earning the authority is with everybody else around you that you're working with, that are working for you. You're one team, and you earn it with them. You don't just get it automatically because you're in the role. So I love that.
No, leadership isn't earned when you announce the vision. Leadership is when you earned enough authority that your people carry out your vision, and they do it to the best of their ability.
And if I can add that, Josh, that first 90 days aren't about proving you're the smartest person in the room. They don't expect to have all the answers. They're about earning enough trust that people are willingly follow you when the real change begins.
I think, Neill, you're the one who said it. They follow you because they want to, not because they have to.
Yeah.
And that is the important part.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have loved everything we've discussed so far. Before we wrap up, Kurt or Neill, any final words that you want to share with everybody?
I just would say that because our focus is healthcare and hospitals, if you're a healthcare executive and you want to talk about either helping add quality to your team, or if you're looking for new opportunities, please reach out.
And Josh, I'll just say, everything we talked about today. You have our LinkedIn profiles on file there, and all these articles, they're under our insights, under our articles on our website, which is www.healthsearchpartners.com. They can go right to there and hit on our 90-day articles in there. And they say, I want to read this first before talking to them. They can sure find everything we talked about today. It's all on our website. Welcome them to come in and take a look at it.
That's perfect. Thank you, guys. I want to remind everybody, this was Kurt Mosley and Neill Marshall. I will have all of their information in the description of the episode of the podcast, on the YouTube page, on the podcast platforms that we have. I'll have all of their links. I'll make sure that we share together their LinkedIn page, links to their 90-day articles, obviously their podcast as well. You want to join in and listen in there, whether you're in the health care profession or not. I'm sure there's a lot of lessons that you can learn as we learn through the last 30 or so minutes here. A lot of things that we can take that go beyond just the environment of the work that you're in. I'll make sure I have all of their information there. You can like, follow, and subscribe to the podcast, found on all podcast platforms. It's my Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Leading Quarters. And email me with any questions that you may have for myself or for Kurt and Neill. I'll make sure I get you all in touch if you can't through the other ways, but we'll make sure we have all those links for you. Or any ideas you may have for future episodes at leadingquarters@gmail.com. But aside from the fact that I am very excited, this was my first time getting to talk to two people at once on my episodes here. I truly enjoyed everything that you both shared. Listening is so important, yet it is not done to the best of everybody's abilities today because I think of everything going on. So everything you both shared, being able to have everybody listen to it, internalize it, and reflect on it, I think will be game changing going forward. So I truly thank you both.
Thank you, Josh.
Pleasure was ours, Josh. Thank you.